The rain fell in heavy sheets against the windows of the small café on 5th Street. Inside, a warm glow from the pendant lights painted the scene with an intimacy that contrasted sharply with the storm outside. Soft murmurs of conversation filled the room, punctuated by the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. It was the kind of evening where time seemed to slow down, the world outside feeling distant and unimportant. She sat at the corner table, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her coffee cup. Elena wasn't beautiful in a conventional sense, but there was something magnetic about her presence. An understated elegance in the way she carried herself, the way her dark hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, the way her amber eyes seemed to see past surfaces and into the heart of things. She wore a maroon scarf loosely around her neck, its edges fraying slightly, hinting at years of use. Her lips, slightly chapped from the cold, pressed together as if in thought. Across from her, Adrian leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed over his chest. His jacket, still damp from the rain, hung over the back of his chair, and his tousled dark hair looked even messier than usual. He studied her with the intensity of someone trying to memorize every detail. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was the kind of quiet born from knowing someone for so long that words sometimes felt unnecessary. "Elena," he said finally, his voice low and gravelly, "do you ever think we've wasted too much time?" She looked up, startled by the question. A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Time isn't something you waste, Adrian," she replied softly. "It's just something that slips through your fingers, no matter how tightly you try to hold on." He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his throat. "That's a very poetic way of saying we've been cowards." Her gaze didn't falter, though something flickered in her expression, something that spoke of years of buried feelings, of words left unsaid. "Cowards, or careful?" she countered, her tone gentle but firm. "There's a difference." "Careful?" he repeated, leaning forward now, his elbows resting on the table. "Elena, we've been dancing around this, whatever this is, for years. We've used every excuse, timing, circumstances, other people. But the truth is we've been too scared to take the risk. And now." He trailed off, his eyes searching hers for some kind of response. The rain outside seemed to grow louder, the world shrinking until it was just the two of them in that small cafe, suspended in the moment. "And now what?" she prompted, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian hesitated. He was not a man who often struggled with words, but in that moment he found himself at a loss. How did you put years of longing, of stolen glances and unspoken truths into words? How did you tell someone that every time they smiled, it felt like the world tilted slightly on its axis? That every time they walked away, it felt like leaving a piece of yourself behind? He took a deep breath, his fingers curling into fists on the table. "And now I'm tired of pretending," he admitted, his voice raw. "I'm tired of pretending that I don't care, that you don't mean everything to me. I'm tired of watching you live your life from a distance, wondering if maybe, just maybe, there's a version of us where we're brave enough to try." Elena's eyes widened slightly, her breath catching in her throat. She had imagined this moment countless times, in countless ways, but hearing the words out loud felt different. It felt real in a way that was both exhilarating and terrifying. "Adrian," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "do you think it's that simple? That we can just decide to be brave and everything will fall into place?" "No," he said quickly, shaking his head. "I know it won't be simple. I know it won't be easy. But what's the alternative? Going back to pretending? To living these half-lives, always wondering what if?" She looked down at her coffee cup, her fingers tightening around it. The weight of his words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and fear. "I've loved you for a long time," she said finally, her voice so quiet he almost didn't hear it. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes, though she was smiling, a real, genuine smile that made his heart ache. "But I'm scared, Adrian. I'm scared of losing you if we try and it doesn't work." He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. His touch was warm, grounding her in the moment. "You won't lose me," he promised, his voice steady. "I'd rather risk everything than spend another day wondering what we could have had." For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, slowly, she turned her hand over, letting her fingers intertwine with his. It was a small gesture, but but it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. "Okay," she said, her voice barely audible. "Let's try." Adrian's smile was soft, a mix of relief and something deeper, something that felt like hope. Outside, the rain began to lighten, the storm passing as quickly as it had come. Inside, in the warm glow of the cafe, two people sat together, their hands clasped, the future unfolding before them, one uncertain, beautiful moment at a time.